Hi, I'm Sean. I've always been curious about the answers to life's big questions. I thought it would be cool to seek some of those answers through conversations with others on a similar path. My intention with these conversations is to inspire you to think bigger, to challenge what you believe to be possible. I'd like to invite you to think outside the lines. Hey, it's Sean, and I want to welcome you to the Think Outside the Lines podcast, where my objective is to bring you insightful conversations with thought leaders who are doing their part to make the world a better place. Now, I want to tell you about a couple of exciting things in the works. First up, I've just relaunched ThinkOutsideTheLines.com, which I'm pretty excited about, since I now offer virtual coaching, which gives me the opportunity to connect with and mentor people all over the world. And you can also learn more about me, about the podcast. We've also got some other cool stuff in the works over there, so be sure to head over and check it out. And if you aren't already, please follow me on Instagram. You can do that at Think Outside the Lines. It helps you stay up to date with all the latest guests and everything related to the show. And lastly, I'd love if you'd head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review for the show. I've got some amazing guests coming up, and the best way for new listeners to discover the show is for Apple to promote it. And they do this when a show receives great reviews in addition to streams and downloads. I want to thank you so much for your support. I'm super grateful to everyone who listens, and I'm excited to bring you some great content in the future. All right, my guest today is the creator of YourCourageousLife.com. She's also the director of the Courageous Living Coach certification and the author of The Courage Habit, How to Accept Your Fears, Release the Past, and Live Your Courageous Life. Now, as I alluded to in the last episode, I'm so inspired by this conversation. It definitely converted me into a super fan. I love her mission and her passion for helping others. And if you missed part one, please go back and check it out, because this episode features part two of our incredibly inspiring conversation. So thanks for joining us again. And please enjoy part two of my conversation with Kate Swoboda. In the pre-interview, I think it was in the pre-interview materials that you sent over, there was a particular sentence that really jumped out at me, and I feel like it's something that like every human on the planet has struggled or is struggling with. I want to talk about how we can clarify like what really matters to us, and how we can figure out how to prioritize that and how we can stay focused.
So like where to start if somebody's not sure, or unpack that for me a little bit.
No, of course. So I'm talking to an audience that is primarily in the United States, right? Where we're just overly stimulated with, we're having to think about politics in ways we never have before. We have to think about, taking care of our families and people in our lives, career, taking care of ourselves. Like, how do we... I realize that there's a ton to unpack there, and there's not necessarily a right answer to this question. I'm just curious to get different people's perspectives on like what works for you in terms of how you can clarify the things that you focus on in that, you know what I mean? And how do you figure out like what your priorities are when there's so much coming at us all the time?
Okay. So I land on that as like, a values question. I land on like, what are my personal values? And I know values work is talked about a lot in the self-help space, but some of the most helpful reading I've done recently about values work is actually from Dr. Brene Brown's Dare to Lead, which is technically a book that's about leadership within organizations, but the section on values is so pun coming invaluable, because she talks about operationalizing them. Like, it's very lofty to say, well, integrity is a value. But what does that actually mean in your life if you're going to let integrity lead as a value? So I'm really clear about a couple things. So like, for instance, that integrity is one of my primary values. And I am at the point where I'm very clear that it just doesn't work for me to feel out of integrity with myself and just like let that slide. Now, nobody's perfect, so everybody's out of integrity in their life somewhere. But I'm just talking about when a lack of integrity is staring me in the face. I said I would do something, I'm not doing it. I've gotten to the point where I dislike that feeling so much that how do I become in integrity with me is the priority. So that dictates things like, oh, am I going to slack off on meditation today? No, I'm not, because I do not like how I feel when I am out of integrity around that. It informs how often I'm checking email and how often I'm checking social media. For me, it is out of integrity, out of alignment for me to be attached to my phone. So it's like I don't have any notifications on my phone with the exception of like Voxer, because that's how I communicate with my team, and the private network where I work with, trainees of the Courageous Living Coach certification, which is the training program that I run. That's it. I don't have Instagram notifications turned on or Facebook notifications turned on. I check those things because I do want to interact with the people who are showing up, to interact with me in those spaces, but I don't have the notifications turned on because my priority is not to look at notifications. My priority is the creative work. So the values are what lead that. Integrity leads with, okay, I got this opportunity to go travel and speak. And it would mean being gone over the weekend of my daughter's birthday party. Well, that's like, to me, that's just a no-brainer. No way. Won't happen. I don't care if it's the best opportunity in the world. It's my daughter's birthday. That's a bigger priority. I wouldn't feel in integrity with myself if I skipped my daughter's birthday for a career opportunity. So the values piece is how I'd say I start prioritizing the day. And then the other thing that I feel called to mention in this moment is, when you define your most courageous self and how that most courageous self would live, it gets easier to see what you want to cut away. So in the Courage Habit, I talk about that. And working with clients, I based the structure of the Courage Habit on what it's like to work with a one-on-one coaching client. And, most coaches start out by going, what's the goal here? What's the end game you're hoping for? And so in the Courage Habit, I talk about this end game of living as your most courageous self. And so if my most courageous self wants to have a relationship with my husband that leaves God speechless, if my most courageous self wants to be able to lift 125 pounds in the clean and jerk at CrossFit, if my most courageous self wants to feel free and open, then I need to make choices that are going to get me there. And skipping CrossFit, that's not a choice that's going to get me there. Loading up my calendar with 50 million different, telesummits that I could be on, that's not going to get me there. So it's like, have some idea of where you're trying to go and and that starts to help you see what isn't going to help you get there.
All of that was so beautiful. And so in the beginning, you alluded to something that, like, as you started talking, it actually caused me to think. I don't want to discount anything that you just said because it's all amazing. But I think that a lot of what you're speaking to starts with turning off the notifications on your phone. Because I just, because that's literally the first thing that came to mind, because that's another thing that I did recently, with the exception of, like, uber important things. But I think that we're trying to stay busy and distract ourselves so much, and those things just perpetuate that, when the beauty of life is really about presence, and you can't be present if you're looking at a screen all day, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, the screen thing is huge. Like, I see these articles, and I remember life before cell phones. Kids, it's possible.
Totally.
So I remember rotary phones, okay? That's the phone that was in my house growing up. And I read articles now about people who are so addicted to their phones that it feels like a big deal to not have their phone next to them in the bed.
Yeah.
And I'm going, what? I mean, I'm not meaning to sound like a pompous jerk, really condescending, like, oh my God, I don't know. No, literally, I'm saying, to me, that just seems like a really out of control relationship with a device. Like, nothing on your phone is real. It all just exists
So
on a
true.
cloud hard drive somewhere.
Yeah.
That is all. What's real is that you're breathing. What's real is that you hear my words or Sean's words and they go into your heart and you go, here's how I feel. But like the notifications, they aren't real. And more we're even finding out like bots are leaving notifications. It's like, it's so crazy to me. So I don't have the phone. Um, I don't have the phone in my bedroom. It is off in another room. People are like, "Well, what do you do to like wake up in the morning?" I'm like, "It's called an alarm clock."
Totally.
I have a Fitbit that I wear. Some people are really weirded out by wearable tech. I like having a Fitbit because I can see what my resting heart rate is. And working from home, it buzzes at me, reminds me to go get my steps in. So to me, but I don't have notifications. You can have them on Fitbit where you'll get notified of like a bunch of different stuff. I don't have any of that turned on. Um, we do Amazon Fire TV for everything, so we don't get a lot of commercials. And I have when I am on Facebook on my desktop, I have the Chrome Newsfeed Eradicator app installed in my browser so
Ooh,
that
I
I
like
don't
that.
get, yeah, I mean, like, it's really, how do you I don't understand, and this is a deep concern to me as a parent, how people do creative work when so many pings are coming at people all at once.
Yeah, and I think it's actually really interesting because I too grew up, and I'm assuming we're probably close in proximity in terms of age. But I grew up without all this technology, right? And so I wonder like what the impact is going to be, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, even with these kids that have never known a life outside of this technology and that extends to these devices. Like what, in terms of attention span, anxiety, all this stuff, right? Like you're seeing all these studies now when we're still in these like premature phases of it, and it's incredibly disturbing.
Oh yeah, we don't let my daughter's 4.5 as of you and I talking, and we don't let her touch our phones. We don't. We we have them put away a lot whenever she's around. My husband is a graphic designer, and he has an iPad that has like the drawing pen. Um, and our daughter's used it a couple times, but like no, we have butcher paper out in the kitchen for her to just stop, drop, and draw at any time. And it's just, yeah, it worries me. It worries me a lot that
Yeah, I'm not a
entire
parent.
social worlds are being constructed by
Totally.
that.
I'm not a parent and it worries me. So I can only imagine if you have kids what that must be like.
Yeah.
In the introduction to your book, you share what I think is a very simple yet eloquent statement in regard to what you want to do in this life. You say, I want to work with people in some way that makes their lives better. And I can't tell you how deeply that one sentence resonated with me because I personally feel the exact same way. And I'm so grateful, like with this podcast, to be able to connect with other like-minded humans. In regard to coaching specifically, though, I'd like if you could just talk for a second about your journey into this career and kind of what it means to be able to help people in this way.
Hmm. Well, the book opens with me not being happy in the career that I was in, and I was a college professor, and um, I really had to take some time to go, what do I and don't I like about the current working environment? And what stood out to me was that the part of the job that I loved the most was actually like office hours when students would come and they'd talk about, here's why I'm having trouble writing this paper. Or, here's what I was thinking of the reading assignment that you gave, but I'm kind of unsure about this, that, and the other. And then also learning about their personal lives and learning about just, English is my second language, and I am juggling school with taking my mom to the doctor and translating for her because she doesn't speak English. Um, Money issues that were coming up, just, the basic issues of life and wanting to be connected and people loving me and stuff like that. And I just really went, well, where's a career where I could do that? And I looked into becoming a therapist, and the road, the trajectory to becoming a therapist involves many more years of education. I already had a graduate degree. And then too, just like I didn't necessarily feel called to work with people who have really serious clinical diagnoses. So it was kind of like, well, I want to work with people maybe you're something like me, right? We are our own test kitchens, right? And by like me, I meant I feel like there's something more, but I'm not fulfilled. I know that I'm smart and I can set a goal and take action towards the goal with relative consistency, and yet somehow something's still not working. I have patterns that I get stuck in, and I can't always see the forest for the trees. So I began looking around and going, well, what are the options? And learned about life coaching. And, that was that. It was like the first time that I did a little demo coaching training kind of exercise. I was just like, oh, this is it. This feels like office hours with my students and trying to help someone with a problem, but not tell them what to do. And certainly not see them as like somehow damaged mentally or emotionally, and somehow I've got to quote unquote heal them. This is like helping to problem solve in a way that's about more than just setting a goal. And I don't have to grade papers. So sign me up,
Totally.
I don't have to grade papers. I don't have to deal with departmental politics. And
you just have to deal with connection, right? That's what it's about.
yeah, I mean, and then the hard part, of course, if you do the entrepreneurial route, is how do you make the money work? And that was its own thing for a long time, But yeah, I was like, this is what I want to do. This really lights me up.
That's it right there. That's the big thing to me, what lights you up. And I think that's a question that I'm pursuing with this podcast. That's a question that I'm encouraging other people to pursue through these conversations. I think that it's so important that we are more intentional in our lives around the things that light us up. And so I'm so inspired by what you're doing out there, and just want to say thank you on behalf of anyone that's discovered your work. I asked this last question to all my guests because I think that we live in a crazy world, and I had questions because I know you're really passionate about the current political landscape, and I'd love to go there maybe again sometime, but I want to ask you, what has you hopeful?
So this might sound kind of funny, but like it goes back to what we were just saying, doing the work that lights you up. So, I train life coaches for a living. I've heard people say more than once, God, there's so many life coaches, or too many life coaches. No,
there's not enough.
I call bullshit on that. Okay. There are too many corporate lobbyists.
Yep.
There are too many executives trying to find new ways to market soda to children, which is going to give them health problems for their entire lives. There are too many people trying to find workarounds for dumping chemicals into rivers and not getting prosecuted for it. That's what we have too many freaking people doing in the world. We do not have too many people who are looking around and going, I don't have a perfect life, but I would love to learn a skill set that's about holding space and helping someone else. So I am very hopeful that we live in a world where so many people want that as their life. Even if they decide, I'm not going to be like an entrepreneurial coach, or I'm not going to go into coaching or personal growth as a career, there are so many people who are going, I want to wake up. And that makes me really hopeful.
Amen. Kate, like I said, I'm so inspired by your mission, and I just want to thank you so much again for all you're doing out there in the world to help people. Please tell us how we can connect with you.
You can learn more about me at yourcourageouslife.com, teamclcc.com, Kate Courageous on Instagram, The Courage Habit, Amazon, your local bookseller, all kinds of places. But look for Kate Courageous, you'll find me.
All right, I'd like to thank you so much for listening today. Now, if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, as it's the best way to discover new episodes of the show. And please be sure to share this episode with anyone you think could benefit from hearing it. Now, you can find the links for everything we talk about in the show notes, in addition to coaching services and so much more. Just head over to thinkoutsidelines.com, and feel free to drop me a line with any questions or feedback you have on the show. You can send an email anytime to hello@thinkoutsidelines.com. Until next time, go out there and pursue your passion today, because the best way to predict the future is to create it. For more information, please visit thinkoutsidelines.com.